Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, presented by Superbook Sports. Taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
Hey, welcome into Coffee Break. I am not Rachel Vigil. She's still on vacation. I'm Jake Shapiro filling in for Rachel alongside D-Mac. Me and D-Mac have been traveling a lot. D-Mac's still in California. I just got back from Chicago yesterday and having a nice time, D-Mac. How about you?
I'm having a wonderful time. I'm in such a unique place. There's no reason for anybody to ever come here. Not really, but I'm glad I'm here. It's in a southern part of San Francisco on the coast, a small town called Pacifica near Rockaway Beach. And I don't think we're going to see the sun at all for the entire time that I'm here. My son is playing summer baseball for out of Skyline College, which is close by. That's why I'm here. But he lives in San Jose where it's sunny and like 90. And here is, I'm telling you, it's like 57 and rainy. I mean, and it's, but there's just something about it, Jake. There's something about the drizzle and the clouds and the cool. And I understand in Denver, it's going to top 90. And it's just something about waking up and putting on a hoodie and getting the ocean wind in your face. And it's not bad, man. And I'm just one of those guys who'd rather be a little bit cold than a little bit hot. So for me, who doesn't tan, who doesn't really lie, I do like going to the pool and I like the water for sure. But, you know, just sitting in the desert boiling or sitting, we went to Atlanta a couple of years ago and we're at a Braves game on 4th of July. I thought I was going to die of, heat stroke. It was so ridiculous. So I know it's different. It's a weird summer vacation with basically no sun, but we're on a little bit of a college baseball tour. We're just following him around, and he's going to play about a dozen or so baseball games while we're out here. And he's got a little bit of a break. That's why I can do Coffee Break here. He doesn't have any games this week until tomorrow, Thursday. So I'm in a really interesting, unique place. I saw Trash Baguette the other night at Winter's Tavern. And I mean, dude, it is hole in the wall, dive bar, hard scrabble, fishing off a pier. It's something like, you know, if I wanted to get lost from the world and write a novel, this is where I would come.
Well, that's awesome. And the first thing you said when there's no sun and it's the coast, I'm like, you're not dealing with the same problem I had in Miami, which is I was so worried as someone who's pale skinned. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get so burned. So I walked into a CVS to get sunscreen and it's like $30 for a can of sunscreen because they know you can just upcharge it. You don't have that problem out there. I've also been having a good time. I was in Chicago, like I said, and I just met Peter and Eileen, the famous Peter and Eileen.
They're here. They could have stayed here during Coffee Break and they're like, we got to go. We got to go for a walk. Peter, let's go. We got to go. Like, I don't think they wanted to get in the way of Coffee Break. I mean, you can just sit here and watch TV. But when Eileen gets an idea, Peter follows. Like, Peter, let's go. But they love you. They love you.
So Peter's a lifelong Red Sox fan, I assume,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So my father-in-law is a lifelong Red Sox fan as well. And he grew up and still lives in Albuquerque. So it's not easy for him to go to games. He's been to probably, 100 Red Sox games over the course of his life. Not a lot for a diehard Red Sox fan. So I have a connection with the White Sox, a couple actually. And I was able to acquire 6th row behind home plate in the club seats for Sunday nights or Sunday afternoons game, Red Sox versus the White Sox.
Wow.
And I told him, I'm like, hey, I got tickets. I don't know if they're good. Like, we're going to the game. And I took his wife, my mother-in-law and my fiance. So we show up and he like walks out of the tunnel and we're, inches from home plate and he freaked out. So that was a lot of fun. But my question to you is, I got a foul ball. And
how'd you do that?
I phrase it very carefully. I want to know if you would say I caught the foul ball. So it was in the 9th inning. Kike Hernandez hit a foul ball off the back of the press box.
Okay.
I'm facing home plate. I turn around. It bounced once off of the, one of the aisles and then I got it.
That absolutely. What's your question?
So if I caught it.
Did you catch a foul ball? All right, that's a good one. Because, did you catch a screamer down the third baseline or a home run ball in left field? No. Did the ball touch anybody else before you laid hands on it?
It touched the press box, touched the ground on the bounce, then I caught it.
I'd say, and it was in nobody else's hands. That's a good one. I'd say yes, barely. Like you're right. Like because if it went off somebody else's glove or it kind of rolled to you, then I don't know. But I mean, you actually had to make a play, right? You actually had to make. Now you were lucky because all the force was off the baseball. I mean, it could not have landed in your hand more softly. Did you have a glove or your hand?
No, it was my hand. I'm too old to bring a baseball glove to a game, in my opinion.
Oh, forget that. That's ridiculous. One hand or two hands?
One hand. Just boom.
One hand. You caught a foul ball.
Okay.
But you caught a foul ball, but it does deserve a little explanation.
Right. And it felt like to me, like the force of it, D-Mac, is like if I was at second base turning a double play and I got like an underhand toss.
But that's pretty magical when the ball is just coming. I mean, it had to come right to you. Were there people to the left and right of you?
Well, and my concern is, so my fiance's mother is not the most mobile, so I went to go protect her. So I turned around and went to go protect her, and then the ball came this way. It bounced like a curveball in the dirt. It bounced the opposite way, so I just went back. Boom.
If you didn't catch it, who would have caught it?
I think it probably would have fallen into some empty seats in front of me.
Okay. Was there a little kid near you?
So this is another part of this. There was a little kid near me, and I would have given it to, it was like a 10-year-old, 8-year-old boy, but he also caught a foul ball.
What?
Before. So, well, his dad did. So I didn't feel like I needed to give it to him.
No. As long as and there were no other obvious little kids.
No other little kids. It was a bunch of grown men drinking, complaining about the socks, either the white or the red.
Jake, you are in the clear. You caught a foul ball. You weren't a jerk like that. Who's the guy, the home run, the foul ball king?
Yeah. Someone tweeted at me and they were like, Shap Hampel. I'm like, no, I'm not Zach Hampel. Leave me alone.
Zach Hampel. That's right. Zach Hampel. No, I think you're in the clear, dude. Like, I think that is like freaking way legit. The whole, like, they just throw you a ball. I think that's a bunch of crap. I mean, and I do advocate, if you are at a baseball game and you get a ball, you absolutely 100% should give it to a kid. 100%. There's nothing else. What are you going to do with your stupid ball? What are you going to do with it? And you're going to make a kid's day and maybe his life, and he's going to remember it forever. But if there's nobody to give it to and you caught it in the clear, you got a legit foul ball, man. That's freaking, and a game ball too. Not a practice ball, not a batting practice ball, like a game ball.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's freaking awesome, dude. That's awesome.
That was
now,
fun.
I would tell you, if I were you, I would note the count, who hit it, or did you already do all that?
So it was Kike Hernandez who hit it, who's one of my favorite players, which is just great. I forgot who was pitching at the time because it wasn't the White Sox normal closer, but he was throwing gas. And then I lost track of the count because I was so caught up in the ball. And then the way the pitch clock's going, by the time I settled back into my seat, there was another batter up. I was like, wait, what just happened?
Well, you can go back into the box score.
I can go back and watch it. I'll know. So I'll go back and watch it.
Now,
it'll go right up here on this little mantle next to this other ball, which Bud Black actually gave me when I was covering the Rockies. I was asking him all sorts of questions about curveball. He just started showing me how to throw curveballs. I was covering the Rockies, and he gets behind me like a girl on a date, teaching me putt-putt. And he's like, this is how I would throw a curveball. And he's like showing me, and he's like caressing my hand. And then he's like, here, keep this baseball as a memento. So that was one of my best memories as when I was covering the Rockies on the beat. So
I would say this too. If you really want to take this to the next level, and I'm not a big autograph guy. I'm not. I would try to get the pitcher's autograph and Kiki's autograph at some point on that ball. And that would be its own little adventure. That would be your own, Don Quixote-like adventure of swinging at windmills, doing something that means nothing except to you. That would be kind of cool. Because where would that take you if you were trying to get both of their autographs? Right. I think that would actually make it kind of a cool story.
So that's my fun from Chicago. There's plenty more.
That's great.
And we're going to get into the NBA in a second. I know it's up there on the side. But the Broncos released some information here about training camp, and that's the next big thing in town. We're all getting excited. DMAC, 3,000 person capacity is the first thing that screams to me. Them going to a ticketed system through Ticketmaster, who's not having the best year of their lives. That kind of sticks.
Are they selling tickets or?
They're giving, you have to get a free ticket. You have to be ticketed, but it's free.
Okay.
So it seems like they're one step away from charging. Well, that's a good question. And it says on the Broncos release that there's a 3,000 person capacity according to Arapahoe County guidelines. So something must have changed in the last year, right? Because last year there was a 7,000 person training camp attendance. There was plenty of times where it was more than 3,000. They didn't cite that it was the fire marshal or the sheriff's department. So I'm trying to figure out who exactly made these regulations. The only screaming change that has happened in the last year is that Sean Payton is now the head coach of the Denver Broncos. So a lot of different things are going on going into this training camp, which is interesting because a lot of people love to go out and attend these.
That's I did not notice that. I will make a call on that after the show's over and try to, get to the bottom of it. That, of course, is absurd. The hill can fit thousands of people. The parking area can fit thousands of cars, maybe hundreds of cars. There's ways that you can park over at the soccer fields and other places and walk over easily. You can access the field via skateboard and bicycle, as I often do. Bicycle, not skateboard. I just fall over on that. It'd be embarrassing. That is interesting. I'm trying to figure out. I don't quite get this one. This does to me on the surface, and I'll do some digging, but on the surface, this screams Sean Payton paranoia.
Right, which is something I find interesting, and we're obviously going to give you more information on this as
Jake, here's the research to do. How did the Saints used to do training camp? We just gotta ask that question. I mean, this is a radical change from the past. I really don't like this because there's a lot of elements of training camp that are dumb and fans just want autographs. And, it was organically working just fine. There was never Jake, there weren't sellout crowds last year to watch the Broncos. There was always plenty of room up on that hill. Now, is that hill a lousy place to watch? Actually, the hill's a great place to watch camp. It's just really hard when it's so hot out. I mean, it can be brutally hot. I do know this, Jake. I do know this. They do want to expand the field house and eventually move all the players and locker rooms over there, which means they would build out towards the parking lot. So imagine that team store and just go out. The space is, believe it or not, the space for the players is too small in that locker room inside the building. They've done a nice job redoing it, but you can't really expand. It's very, very narrow. And it really, in a top-notch facility, which essentially the Broncos, they really do have a top-notch facility, but the locker room stinks. It's a space thing. So I wonder if this is, I don't know. I wonder if this is part of it. If they're thinking about, well, if we expand and we had a different car setup, I don't know, man. It's weird. It's a weird deal. And my guess too, Jake, is by the 5th training camp practice, nobody's going to give a crap who's got a ticket or not. People are just going to start showing up.
And I could see that happening, but those tickets do not go on sale per se, but they go available tomorrow, Wednesday, June 28th at 10 a.m. So if you're trying to go out to training camp, better jump on that before you tune in to Coffee Break tomorrow.
I mean, could you just get a pair of tickets for every day? I mean, can you just request tickets every day of training camp?
I would assume so, which makes me think, DMAC, that, if I'm someone that doesn't have my plans in order, I would just get as many tickets as possible, which is going to cut back on the attendance number even lower than 3,000.
Oh, but Jake, that's where I'm going. Like,
Right.
People will just snatch up tickets. It's free. This may be the lowest attended training camp of all time because people will just snatch up a bunch of tickets just in case and not really use them. Also, it really is weird because if you snatch up tickets, what stops you from selling them?
Right. You can be able to resell them on like Craigslist or something like that.
Yeah. Huh? For what? Yeah, this is a little weird. I'm not sure what's behind it. Pinning it on Arapahoe County when we've literally had, I don't know, 10 years of training camp. I mean, how many years has the Hill and the Fieldhouse been around? 10, maybe not 10. I mean, how long has it been? 7, 8? Something like that?
Predates me. It's been a while. It's been at least 7 years, if not 8. So, yeah.
But now this comes up.
Right. So I don't know what changed, if it's a security thing or what, but we'll look into that.
Well, this is going to be lousy. I'll just tell you this, and I'm not anti-Broncos here, but Broncos, this is going to be lousy for families. There's going to be parents who just don't see or hear this rule because it's never existed. They're just going to bring their kids. So you're going to tell me you're going to turn away a family with like 3 kids in a stroller because they didn't see that they needed tickets? You're just going to turn them away? Wow.
And that's where the reseller comes out on Broncos Way with four tickets that were free that they're now selling for $10 a pop.
This one doesn't make a lot of sense, Jake. This does not make a lot of sense.
So let's get into some NBA stuff. We'll get back to Broncos stuff, later this week. But there's a couple interesting moves that happened that were a little under the radar. One, John Collins, who's a really good power forward for the Atlanta Hawks, was traded to the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
Right now, the Utah Jazz just traded for a power forward that's 6'10". They drafted a power forward. They have Lauri Markkanen, who's a 7-foot small forward who might be sizing down to play shooting guard to fit in. They're going big in their build back towards the top under Danny Ainge. You had the Timberwolves make a move to re-sign Naz Reid, who is their third-string big. They committed over $40 million to their third-string big behind Gobert and Towns. To me, that doesn't signal necessarily that Towns is going to be traded, but that all these teams are trying to size up because they know they need to compete with the Nuggets.
Size matters. Rebounding is king. And look what the Nuggets did with Swather. Swather? Right, Swather, right?
Strother.
Sorry, my bad. And they went big again. Size matters, Jake, and rebounding matters. And there's no other way to put it. Markkanen playing a 2. Wow, that's a wild concept. But again, the NBA, especially with European players, has become positionless. It really has. Their skill set at every size is through the roof. And the days of post-up players is just dead. The Nuggets, they will follow this trend. And I would say the Nuggets have not stumbled. They have evolved into the best brand of basketball possible. And this is basketball at its latest evolution. That's why I do love the NBA, Jake. I do. Because there's more ongoing developments of athleticism, strategies, technology, training. And people that just say, oh, the NBA, it's boring, it's this, it's that. I just don't think they pay attention. I just think they're looking at box scores and they're not seeing exactly what's going on. I think the NBA, as exciting as ever, I think it's being played at the highest level it's ever been. I can't imagine what this Nuggets team would do to Michael Jordan's Bulls team. I mean, I think they would humiliate them. When the best rebounder for the Bulls is Dennis Rodman at 6'8", can you imagine how he would be eaten alive by this Nuggets team?
And Did you see Michael Dennis Jordan, Rodman's quote about Nikola Jokic this week?
Well, I saw that he said Larry Bird wouldn't be good enough to play in the NBA. He'd be in Europe, which is asinine because Larry Bird and Nikola Jokic are virtually the same player. No, Larry Bird would do great. I did not see what he said about Jokic.
Yeah, that was essentially that. He said if Larry Bird played in this era, he'd be in Europe. Hell no, there's no way. I think I think the kid from Denver is way better than him, is what he said about Jokic Bird.
Jokic may be better than Bird, but I mean, Jokic is not as good of a 3-point shooter as Bird, although Jokic's numbers are fantastic.
You could make a case.
Percentage-wise, it's probably close, if not better. He just doesn't have the fluidity of the game that Larry Bird had from the 3. But, Bird was 6'10". But I'll give you a little story on that. Bird never wanted to be listed as 6'10" because he felt 6'10" would be like a center or, it would put him in a box. But Bird really was 6'10", not 6'9". But he's listed over and over at 6'9". So Bird is 6'10", Jokic is 6'11". They're practically the same height. Bird was an exceptional rebounder, just like Jokic. Great outlet passer, great passer, same sort of athleticism getting the ball down the court. They're very similar players, Jake.
So I just looked this up, and I don't have off the top of my head how many years Larry Bird played in the NBA, but he played, I think, 13 years in the NBA. He hit 649 three-pointers in his career. Do you want to guess where Nikola Jokic is right now in his career?
For total three-pointers?
Total three-pointers made.
I'm going to say 400.
593. So Jokic needs 53s to top Bird.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, Rodman may be right about that at the end of the day. But don't forget, Bird has 3 championships and 3 MVPs. Okay? So, and 3 MVPs in a row, which, Jokic won't get to stupidly. He should have. And Bird was slowed down too because of back issues. Bird
was slowed down by things that would have never happened now. The travel, the back issues, that's stuff that if he was playing now, and yes, the load management stuff kind of sucks, but it would have extended Larry Bird's career at least 3 more seasons.
But Rodman's comments about Bird are so stupid. Bird would fit better in today's game than because he's such a brilliant passer and a tremendous shooter. And like Jamal Murray's game, Bird was incredible, like around the elbow. Like his mid-range game was phenomenal. No, Bird would have been, and that's just a dumb thing to say. The guys that were ahead of their time were clearly Bird and Magic Johnson. Michael Jordan wasn't as good of a shooter, but of course Jordan and Kobe could play in any era, that sort of thing. It's about the team. And I'm sure we'd get into some fun arguments about what would the Nuggets team this year do to the Bulls team of the 90s. I think they would wipe them off the court. I think they'd be, and basically because of rebounding. Rebounding would kill the Bulls against the Nuggets because they had Pippen, who was taller than Jordan. And they had, who are their centers? Bill Cartwright and Luke Longley. Jokic would kill these guys. Jokic would put 45 points up against these guys night after night. And then what are you going to do to stop him? Well, you're going to double him. Well, who's going to be guarding Jamal? And then the same problems all these other teams have. Length, size. And the Nuggets definitely have a style. Strother fits right into it. I love the length that he has. I'm getting a little bit more optimistic about losing Bruce Brown, although I don't love it. I see where the Nuggets are going. Colin Gillespie will be an interesting guy to watch. Peyton Watson is long. He's 6'8", and he's got like a 7'1" wingspan. He's a long athletic player. And I love the fact they're talking about having Christian Brown play in Summer League. He should play in Summer League. He does need to hunt for his shot and make some of those shots. He got by with a lot of athleticism, which is awesome. But if he really wants to have an impact in the league, Jake, he's got to be a better outside shooter. So I'm glad he's going to, and I hope he takes 20 shots a game in Summer League action. He should. I don't care if he bricks, 3/4 of them. Get the shots up, hunt for the shot, get your looks. Let's see if you can really play.
Christian Brown might be the player who's played the most minutes in an NBA Finals who ends up playing in the next Summer League. This is actually a really interesting thing. And Christian, I think his skills are perfect to be a small forward, a 3-and-D small forward in the NBA. But if we need him to take Bruce Brown's role, he needs to develop some dribbling abilities, some creation, and which is why even if he only plays 2 games in Summer League, I think it could be valuable to him to do some of those ball hunting, shot hunting, dribble creation type stuff. I agree with you that that's not the worst thing in the world. You don't lose anything by giving him a couple opportunities there and keeping him in shape. I tweeted on March 7th, D-Mac, and I don't know if you saw this. I retweeted it the night of the NBA draft. That's the first of many great games by Julian Strawther at Ball Arena. I tweeted that on March 7th when Gonzaga was playing here in the NCAA tournament. I love Strawther. Strawther is my favorite pick for the Nuggets going all the way back into January. And his shooting ability, shooting over 40% his last 3 years in college. He's big. He has some ability to create. I think his defense will eventually get there because he's a smart player and he's big enough. He is the perfect small shooting guard to be an offensive shooting guard that plays off of Murray, Porter, and Jokic. I'm in love with this pick. What's interesting is that this organization did not go for a defensive type guy. They went for 3 different guys who are offensive minded. And have you seen any of these Jalen Pickett highlights yet?
Yes.
Oh, he plays like Jokic. He plays like a 6'3" Jokic. It's
which is how Bruce Brown played.
Right. So I think Pickett, and I think the Nuggets, if they seriously lose Bruce, aren't going to be able to roll out a combination of Christian Brown, Jalen Pickett, Colin Gillespie, and get by. I think they're going to need something supplemental, whether that's a Dennis Smith, a Nickeil Alexander-Walker, or a Dennis Schroeder, something like that. They're going to need something like that. Or honestly, even bringing back Reggie Jackson could be beneficial in that scenario to get you through the regular season. But a lot of this, to me, in the Nuggets' hopes of repeating, hinge more on the development of Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, maybe Zeke Naji taking a step than it does of who are you getting in here to help out.
It would be very tempting right now to just bring back Reggie Jackson, go with these young guys, and then let's talk at the trade deadline and see what's what. It'd be sort of tempting to do that. And financially, that probably would, you're better with the financial stuff than me, but financially that would probably make the most sense too.
So you can hold on to this mid-level exception that we keep talking about and wait to use it until free agency in the middle of the season if you wanted. The first day you can use it is July 1st, but you could wait to use it if you wanted to. And then that gives you the option if a team buys out a Russell Westbrook like last year, the Nuggets would have more money than anybody else to offer Russell Westbrook. And I'm not saying Russell Westbrook is the perfect guy. I'm just saying that that was an example of something that happened last year. Well, or even if Reggie Jackson.
How's Colin Gillespie, dude? Like, how's his ball handling? I mean, we're talking about backup minutes for Jamal. We're talking Bruce Brown minutes is like 15 to 18 minutes a game. Brown played a little bit more, but he wouldn't play that much. And then, well, I mean, you got a couple of choices, actually. So I'm okay. You know what? I sit here. You know who I wish we could get back? If in my dream scenario, Monte Morris.
Oh, okay, good.
Well, why? Who are you thinking?
I thought you were gonna say Bones. I was like, dude, no.
No. I wish there was a way, because Monte Morris would actually be freaking perfect.
But Monte would be great for the regular season. I think Monte's too small for the postseason.
Okay. Well, listen, man, I watched like 20 minutes of Strawther hit like 100 3-pointers. I mean, his highlight video is sick from Gonzaga. I mean, these are like big games, big shots. His release point is super high. He is smooth. He's a great ball handler. And he's 6'7.5". I mean, you know, dude, if that could be your backup guard instead of Bruce, and I love Bruce Brown, do not get me wrong. But Bruce is maybe 6'3". I mean, maybe with cowboy boots on. And Strawther is 6'7" and change. So, no. And you'll see a lot of these other teams, Jake, obviously, try to go bigger, try to go taller. You know, I'm out here in the San Francisco area, and I was talking to an Uber driver who is a big Warriors fan, and that was the complaint. That was about the size of the Warriors, and I was talking to him about Chris Paul. And, you know, Chris Paul's going to come off the bench, but I'm like, well, okay, you got a little small guy replacing another small guy. You know, are we really worried about
They're going to close with Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, and Draymond Green. Your center is 6'7", and you've got two guys that are 6'2" or below. I don't understand that move completely from the Warriors. I think that they're going to struggle big time to continue to find that success because they are going to be so small. And DMAC, I understand bringing in a Hall of Famer, but like Chris Paul is not the same guy. He seemed significantly diminished last year, even from the last time the Nuggets ran into him. So I look around the West, and I thought Dallas did some smart things around the margins on the NBA draft, getting in Rashawn Holmes, who fell out of the Kings rotation, and they hope to bring back Kyrie, but honestly, Kyrie Irving and Luka does not scare me the way we saw that pairing the first time. Sacramento's got a lot of money to play with. A couple of these teams can throw a lot of money at Bruce Brown, but there's not a depth of free agency. Fred VanVleet and Chris Middleton isn't going to flip the entire West. So I look around the West and I say, why not? What's holding the Nuggets back? And yes, once they run into maybe a Milwaukee, a Boston, a Philadelphia, it's going to be challenging in the NBA Finals. But who knows at that point? So I look at the Nuggets and I say clear favorites. I am not concerned at all with any of these teams. And after draft night heading into free agency, I feel pretty confident. But again, a lot of things could change in the next, 96 hours here.
Here's what's exciting. It's going to take teams a couple of years to catch up with the Nuggets. They just cannot change their rosters like that. They're going to have to spend the same development time, basically the Nuggets did, to catch up with the Nuggets. It's great news for the Nuggets. There's really nothing one team can do overnight. So barring any kind of injury, the Nuggets really will be in the same place they were this year. And hopefully they can come through as they did last year. And I love how they're restocking. So Calvin Booth, thumbs up, buddy. Great job on the draft. And I think you can go relatively casually into free agency, relatively. And they've earned it, Jake. They got here through development, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and they had to make big moves. They had to get rid of guys they loved. They had to get rid of Gary Harris and Monte Morris. I don't know if Michael Malone loved Will Barton, but they had to move on from him. They had to admit sort of weird mistakes, like Bones is just not right, despite the fact we drafted him. We can't do this. They scraped by with DeMarcus Cousins, but they knew enough that this guy isn't good for the chemistry of the room, which I think, again, was a tough one on Michael Malone because he has a deep relationship with Boogie. And they brought in, I am so hoping DeAndre Jordan comes back as basically a player coach. That's essentially what he is. And I don't know where they stand with Jeff Green, but I would welcome him back too, for sure.
They basically want Jeff Green to take a pay cut, is where they're going to want to go. And I think Jeff, based off of what he said he wants to play 2 or 3 more years and he wants to finish his career in Denver. So okay. I wouldn't be surprised if Jeff actually took that pay cut and just said, let's hang around. DMAC, I'm going to change gears here and let's go over to the Avs. You saw the NHL awards last night, as did I. Were you surprised by any of where the Avs placed among the rest of the NHL?
No, not really. It all felt about right. It felt fine. Who do we know who the idiot was who voted for Connor McDavid for 5th place for MVP? Do we know?
Not yet, but it seems who's that Boston guy who's Jack Edwards. People are like, it's definitely Jack Edwards, but it's not been confirmed.
I mean, you want to talk about self-entitled arrogance. Whoever that guy is, how many votes were there? There's a lot of votes for the NHL awards. Hundreds of votes. Mm-hmm. And for the guy to vote for him in 5th place, I don't even know what to say to that. Connor McDavid had just one of the most amazing years you could ever imagine. He was slam dunk, deserving of the heart. What Nate come in 5th, something like that?
I think Nate and Kale were 4th and 5th or 5th and 6th.
I think Kale was 3rd, but I think Nate was a little bit lower than that. Listen, man. I think the Avs season was where they were. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with everything.
It was Connor, Pasternak, Kachuk, Robertson, McKinnon, Rantanen. So Kale actually wasn't even in here. Kale didn't even get a vote.
Well, that's for the Hart Trophy. He'd be for the Norris Trophy.
Right, that's what I was talking about for the Hart. The Norris.
Kale was nowhere close to the Hart this year. I mean, and I think he was third for the Norris. So, listen, to win the Hart Trophy as a defenseman, Jake,
right.
That's, that's hard to do. You're going to, I mean, Mikko and McKinnon both had over 100 points. And McDavid did he have close to 200? I mean, it was something just absolutely absurd.
It was an insane amount of production from McDavid this year. And, something you said to me, or something you said on this show when I wasn't on, stood out to me recently. And you said that the Avs basically have a lot of work to do to get back to where they were just a year ago. Ryan Johansson, I think, is a pretty big pickup. I don't think he is where he was at one point in his career, but this is a guy who was an all-star center at one point in his career. The Avs got him for very cheap. It's an interesting move, and it solves, at least on paper, their second-line center issue. Assuming Valeri Nichushkin, which is a big assumption, is the player that he was 2 years ago, or maybe even the start of last season, you got to feel pretty good about the Avs. I mean, you could say on paper that their goalie is even better now than the one that they had during their cup run.
Everything with hockey is the reason why the Avs did so well 2 years ago and not last year was because they were getting contributions from all over the place. They weren't reliant on just, a couple of people. Well, that wasn't the case last year. They were reliant specifically on McKinnon and Rantanen. McDavid gets all of his points. First of all, he's an incredibly talented guy. But aside from him and Draisaitl, who else are we talking about there? Nugent Hopkins, maybe. But still, like, that really is like a two-person team.
Right.
And then they had Mike Smith, who was like 1,000 years old 2 years ago.
And they had Duncan Keith, who was 1,000 years old, but he was still productive. And both of those guys walked away.
And this is why McDavid definitely deserved the MVP, why Jokic deserved the MVP, even though his team finished in 6th 2 years ago and the year before. Listen, what is this team without him? It's terrifying. So I've heard some of this negative McDavid stuff about, well, he hasn't won this and he hasn't won that. It's like, are we not paying attention to Jokic here in town? I mean, look what he has done. And this is what's so BS about the MVP stuff is because people in their conversations count the playoffs and then the next season sort of all as one, and they shouldn't. But okay, let's play this stupid game. And if you're doing this, Jokic is in first place for the MVP by a mile right now. McDavid there's no debate here. McDavid's the best player in the world. He played like it. He won the MVP, well-deserved. They just didn't have a very good team. I mean, not good enough to win the cup, obviously. And again, like with Jokic, what does that team do 2 years ago without Jokic? I mean, what are we talking about here? So when you're talking about a team, though, Jake, you are talking about more than production of just one or two superstars. You've got to get contributions everywhere else. Listen, Johansson, okay, but we get into this conversation, and Jake, whenever you start a conversation with, well, 2 years ago, he was X, Y, and Z. 2 years ago, Joe Flacco was killing the NFL, and he's in his prime now. He's with the Broncos now. He's terrible. 2 years from retirement, Peyton Manning had the best NFL season ever, and 2 years later, he couldn't throw the ball into the ocean standing on the beach. He had his worst statistical season. Listen, man, I can tell you, getting a little bit older in my life, shizzle happens over a 2-year period. It's not like you're automatically the same person you were. So I think Johansson's going into his 13th NHL season. He's only 30 years old, but that's a lot of wear and tear. I hope for the best. And the good thing about Johansson more than anything, size. Again, we're talking about size here. 6'3", 215. And Nichushkin is huge too. And he'll be back, Jake. He'll be back. They're just going to push that one under the rug. They're just going to ignore everything with Nichushkin. He'll be back. So the second line that's made up of huge Nichushkin, huge Johansson, and then you can get a little creative with, you might throw Dennis Malgin out the wing. He's tiny. He'll sort of balance things out. Or you can just get another huge guy out there. You've got, I don't know what they're going to do with JT Compher. I'm a little confused with what they're going to do with Compher. And a lot of people say they're just going to, get rid of him, I guess, or let him go. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm a JT Compher fan, so I'm a little bit nervous about that. And replacing Landeskog is tricky too. Jake, they got some work to do. What can I tell you? And you know what they could do? Here's what's exciting really quick, Jake. If Lehkonen and McKinnon are really that good, and they are, okay, you could put almost anybody else up on the first line with them, right? Your second line could be Nichushkin, could be Johansson, and could be Rantanen. Holy cow. That has got to be one of the biggest lines in hockey. I mean, that is some serious size.
I agree with you. And I want to get into a conversation of work to do with Denver's Mount Rushmore. I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to save this conversation for tomorrow because I'll just preview it here. And I don't want an answer from you because we'll have it tomorrow. Who has a better chance of getting on Denver Sports Mount Rushmore? Jamal Murray or Nathan McKinnon? And I think it's a really interesting conversation. I think Nikola Jokic's already there. I think Jamal Murray's a top 5 Nugget, but he has now a pathway open to end up on this Mount Rushmore of great Denver sports athletes. And we'll get into it tomorrow because I love breaking down the Mount Rushmore and who's the greatest of all time and all that stuff. But I want to jump to Mercy Rules because, I was dying to talk Rockies on yesterday when I was off work. I've been dying to talk Rockies, and you're my guy to talk Rockies with, D-Mac. That was one of the most embarrassing losses in franchise history Saturday night. In fact, nobody has lost a game by that much and still won a series since 1890. No one has done that. We're talking about some crazy stuff. So I want to start here. Should there be mercy rules in professional sports, and which professional sport should maybe have the mercy rule or needs it most?
Okay, I got to think about that for a second. Inherently, every game, the clock is just going to roll. So you can establish, if you've got some sense of grace, your own mercy system. For example, the Broncos were being smoked by the Raiders a few years ago. I think it was like 53-13 or something like that late in the third quarter. And if the Raiders wanted to score 70, I don't think they would have much of a problem. Well, you don't need a mercy rule. You just need to have a coach on the other side that understands what's going on, and you just sort of run the clock out. So I would say you don't need a mercy rule in basketball, hockey, or baseball, or football, because essentially you have a clock. Let's talk about baseball. What is the quality of a game? Well, let me start here. What, in your opinion, what lead in the game in Major League Baseball is too great to overcome?
Probably 12 or more. And I'm talking.
I think it's got to be more. I think
if it's 12 after the 6th inning.
Yeah, I think the innings can work into it. I think the innings can work into it. I would say this for Major League Baseball, no. There's too many, and I know records are different now because things have changed and all that. But I'd say no to that for Major League Baseball. First of all, it doesn't happen that often. And even when it happened, it's not like it happened 2 days in a row, right? It didn't happen the next game. In fact, the Rockies won the next game. So now I've seen, Jake, I've watched baseball up and down the dial, man. From T-ball through high school, through college, through minor league stuff. I will tell you in college, I think it's a good idea. I got into the most ridiculous situation in the world with my son playing JV baseball for Smoky Hill against Grandview. And I have a good relationship with Grandview. I know the coach is there, and it's not an indictment on Grandview except for this particular game. The final score of this game was 33-3, and it was absolutely positively ridiculous because there are so many ways that the coach on the other side could have mitigated that score. Now, I'll out myself. I was a Little League coach at an all-star game, and our team was playing a team from Durango, and I don't even know how they got there. Jake, I had my kids bat left-handed because I didn't want to show up the other team. So I told them not to snicker, not to laugh, but everybody bat left-handed and do the best that you can. And we scored 7 runs that way. I mean, it was kind of like ridiculous. And after the game, even though we won by a lot, and there was a mercy rule in that game, the coach on the other team saw what I said was doing, and he actually thanked me for it because he did, we're not about humiliating people. I would say in the minor league level up to triple A, that yes, I could see 15 after 7. I think you got to play 7 no matter what. 15 after 7. Maybe 20 after 7. I'll 20 after 7.
You're talking about this only comes into play once a season per the entire Major League Baseball, basically. If it's 20 after 7. 15, it would come into play maybe 10 to 20 times.
I'll say no. You know what? I'll say yes on the lower level. And by the way, on the lower level, it already exists. I'm not sure where it is on the minor league level. They certainly don't have it at the NCAA level.
It's nothing in professional baseball. College baseball often has it up until the College World Series and sometimes not in conference play as well. But in almost all levels of baseball, the mercy rule does exist. In Little League, I've umped a million Little League games. It's 10 after 7, 8 after, 9, 8 after 8. And it's like, it changes depending on the inning. I've been in a situation where a team was up 14 in the 4th inning trying to get their little kids 50 feet from home plate, and they can walk off the game to win by 15 in the bottom of the 4th. And then the other team comes back all the way and wins the game. So
we were in an 11-year-old tournament in Steamboat Springs. We were down by 9 runs and came back and won the game in a championship game. So so I'm hesitating on this because it is a little tricky to say what's right and what's not right. And there are some dumb youth baseball, not Little League, youth baseball tournament rules. You got to be careful. Little League is a brand. It's not the style of baseball. It's all youth baseball. It's tissue paper, not Kleenex. It's a photocopy, not a Xerox. Just so we understand what we're talking about here with baseball. Okay. I don't want to mix in Little League because you know how I feel about Little League. Anyways, I think that at the end of the day, they do some weird rules, Jake, in youth baseball because you're rewarded for piling up the runs because you're playing in a tournament where there's a run separator. Now, usually that's just the most you can get is +7. But there's also pitching rules in these tournaments. So if you can win, like, for example, this is going to sound crazy, but if you can be up 20 runs after 2 in some of these little kid baseball games, the game's over. So you're kind of like, well, I can save my pitching because I want it's about the innings pitched, not the number of pitches in youth baseball. So you can only pitch your kid throughout the entire tournament, say 7 innings. So if I can end the game in 2, well, I can save some pitching. So should I go out there when it's 16-0 and try to pile on 4 more runs in the 2nd inning? Would you do that or not?
Yes, because it opens up the field for the next games to play. And this is someone who's organized youth baseball tournaments. I was the youngest director of a Little League board of directors in the country at one point in North Boulder. I have a lot of experience with youth baseball, DMAC. But my point at the major league level is I think I'd get fired if I was a manager right away by baseball itself, because if I ever found myself in Bud Black's position that he found himself in Saturday, I would pull my team off the field in the 5th inning because I wouldn't want to waste pitching. All right, we've lost the game. Whatever. Why not forfeit? I am the biggest advocator of teams forfeiting professional sporting games. Why didn't the Broncos just forfeit in the 4th quarter against the Rams? What were they doing at that point?
Well, Jake, time out, Jake. I love you, but you're missing part of the business of sports, my friend.
I understand the business aspect.
Well, apparently you don't.
No, and it's terrible for the business. But if I'm the coach, why do I care about the business?
Jake, you care about the business because of who signs your check, Jake. And if you're pulling the team off the field in the 5th inning and beer sales don't stop until the 8th, you just cost me like $600,000 that day, Jake. And, I really don't need you as a manager to do that. So you're going to lose your job on that one. It's different when, it's Grandview JV against Smoky Hill JV. It doesn't need to be 33-3. I mean, we can have a conversation there with just mom and dad in the stands. If we're selling beer at that game, we have other problems in the Cherry Creek School District, which we don't. We don't sell beer at those games. So it's just wildly two different things. It's an interesting question. I think the humiliation of what the Rockies went through should be noted. It happened. It was embarrassing. Chase Anderson on the third pitch. Are you kidding me? You just don't plunk the guy or throw the ball in the dirt or over his head. You really serve up another gopher ball. And it's the second time you've done that in your career. I mean, it's one of the craziest things of all time. I mean, Jake, I couldn't believe, when it happened, I was like, oh my God, well, it's baseball. When's the last time it happened? Oh, it happened 3 years ago with the same pitcher.
There's a reason he was cut and on the street a week ago.
Dude, I mean, listen, man, you just did 2 in a row on 2 pitches. The third pitch is not over the plate. I mean, you can do anything with that third pitch. Anything but make it a hittable baseball. And you don't think they're going to hunt that? Of course they are. I don't have any problems with Bud Black. But the whole concept that just nothing can improve, so why bother firing Bud, is one of the craziest illogical sports arguments of all time. I mean, yeah, something can change. It could send a message to freaking everybody that this isn't acceptable. And whether it's Bud's fault or not, I mean, oh, well. I mean, I never thought it was Walt. I'm friends with Walt Weiss, so I'm biased because I like Walt and I'm personal friends with him. I never thought it was his fault. I didn't think there was anything all that special. But I don't think there's something all that special about baseball managers, period, at that level, to be honest with you. I think baseball is basically made up by analytics and general managers, and that's that. And the managers, what do the managers do? They can only manage who you've got designated to play. They're not making the personnel decisions. They're not shaping your bullpen. They're not shaping your starters. They're just sort of telling you to go in and you not to go in. You want to look at a real manager of baseball? Look at Jay Johnson at LSU and what he has to put together and how he manipulates things. That's complicated managing, Jake. That's something. High school level, especially that college level, managing a 40-person college roster. And granted, these are some of the best at Florida and LSU. But still, you've got to really figure things out. You've really got to manage. And in that game yesterday, they made a huge adjustment, a huge managing judgment, because they put the belly Beloso as the leadoff hitter, which was a huge change. But it made sense because of how he hit against lefties. Well, that's some out-of-the-box thinking, Jake. And you see that in college all the time. So baseball should not just be defined by Major League Baseball. There's all sorts of levels to it, and there's all sorts of levels where managing really matters. But if you want to just tell me there's nothing Bud Black can do, what are we talking about here? So that's how irrelevant a manager really is at the Major League level? There's nothing Bud Black can do? It's not Bud Black's fault? Really? And I like Bud. Everybody likes Bud. You like Bud. He showed you how to throw a curveball. And I agree. I get it. Maybe it's not Bud's fault. But what the hell, man? I mean, at what point is this just totally acceptable? And we've reached the nadir of patheticness that we really just don't seem to care. So that's my little baseball rant on the Rockies. And James's concept of a boycott is so it's borderline juvenile, because it's so inconsequential unless you actually do something about it. And what's the end goal anyway? The Monforts are never going to sell the team, nor should they. Why would they sell the team? They're the ones that put the investment into it. They're the one that put their time and effort into it. I mean, if they're not good at it, fine. It is a bummer, though, Jake, really quick. I have seen teams that have been sold, specifically the Boston Red Sox, that have turned things around because they were sold. So probably the best way to turn the Rockies around is to sell the team. But there's zero motivation for them to sell, and nobody gives a crap if James Marillac goes to a game or not.
Well, no one cares if James goes to a game, but I will be at tonight's Rockies-Dodgers game with Clayton Kershaw on the mound. So there's how I feel about baseball.
Good. Have fun. I think the boycott stuff is stupid. If somebody wants to protest inside of the stadium, I could see that. I saw somebody on Twitter has a Rockies jersey they made up. It says 00 for a number, and the name on the back is sell the team. And it's like, okay, all right. I mean, if you want to sort of get people together and stand up and turn your back to the field in the 5th inning, go for it. But you're not going to have many people that want to do that. We here in Colorado have more or less accepted the fact that the Rockies are going to be substandard on the field. They're going to have occasional good players. Once they get really good, we'll get rid of them for whatever reason. And the ballpark is going to be an awesome place to go to in basically May, June, July, and early September. We've all come to sort of accept that. And Jake, I've been in that locker room a couple times and had champagne and beer spilled on me because they're celebrating making the playoffs. It's happened 4 times in 24 years. But okay, it's happened. And you know what? They'll probably stumble into it again. But the team least likely to win a championship in their existence by a mile is the Colorado Rockies.
He's D-Mac. I'm Jake Shapiro. Thanks for tuning in to Coffee Break. We will be back tomorrow. I'll get to that Mount Rushmore. We've got some more stuff coming. And, of course, tune into The Drive today at 2 p.m. to hear D-Mac, and we will chat with you tomorrow.